Pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Police?
Present.
Bonchine?
Here.
Kuchera?
Here.
Campbell?
Here.
Wolfgang here, Zeitz,
Here.
and Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Brief public input. Approval of the agenda. We do have an addition we have to add. Eric, what's it called? The Wexford
EMS?
EMS update. Okay.
Where's that gonna go?
Item 8.
I would move to approve the agenda as presented with the addition of Wexford EMS update.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda with the addition of item number 8, the Wexford update. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Declaration of conflict of interest. Anybody have a conflict with anything on the agenda tonight? Presentation and special reports. Steve Peacock.
Wow, that was quick. I thought I had a few reports ahead of me.
You can thank Lynette for that. There was. She
Thank
caught
you.
it.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Peacock. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I'm an audit partner here with the Traverse City office of Raymond, coming to deliver a draft financial statement for you folks for Blair Township. Once you guys go through this and give us the approval to go final, we're ready to go final with this document. So what I have given to you is 2 documents. We're going to start with the colorful one first. Take you right back to the independent auditor's report. Again, these are not dated and they're watermarked with draft because we do not have a report date. So our date becomes the date that you tell us to go to press, and that's the date we put on the reports. So it'll be in the coming weeks, I'm presuming, or a few days, and we'll be ready to go and get these things issued. So this independent auditor's report talks about the financial statements that we were engaged to audit, which is the Blair Township financial statements as of and for the year ended June 30th, 2021. Under management's responsibility for the financial statements, it's important to know that what this paragraph says is these financial statements are not ours, they are yours. These are the township's financial statements, and then the auditor's responsibility is described in the next 3 paragraphs. If you roll 3 paragraphs, go ahead and roll over to the next page. At the very top, we believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our audit opinions. So that means we've done the work that we told you we were going to do, and we are ready now to issue the final signed report. What everybody wants to know is what's the opinion. That's the next paragraph. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects, respect the financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Blair Township as of June 30th, 2021, and the respective changes in financial position and where applicable cash flows thereof, and the budgetary comparison for the general fund and each major special revenue fund for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the U.S. It's a very long-winded answer for saying that's an unmodified or a clean audit report. So that's the gold standard. That's the highest level of assurance auditors can put on your financials. Next paragraph, required supplementary information. This talks specifically about the management's discussion and analysis, and that's the document that will follow the report. That is not an audited document. However, we do read that to make sure it's consistent with the financial statements that follow. Okay. Under other information, there are combining and individual fund financial statements that appear after the footnotes with a lot of very small minutia detail. I typically don't comment on those, but you can see in the last sentence in that paragraph, In our opinion, the combining of individual fund financial statements and schedules are fairly stated in all material respects in relation to the basic financial statements taken as a whole. So those are audited reports, or audited statements. And then the very last part of this report at the top of page 3, there is another internal control report that we put together that appears at the very last few pages of this, and we'll talk about that when we get there. Any questions on the opinion? Were I sitting in your chair, I would want to know if it's a clean report, and it is, and if there are any findings. We'll talk about just a couple things that came up during the audit. There are repeat findings from last year, so they're not going to be a surprise to anybody in this room. But let's talk about a couple highlights real quick. Page 19. Under governmental accounting, you're required to have 2 balance sheets and 2 income statements reported. It's old fund basis accounting and then the new full accrual accounting, if you will. Page 19 has all the assets of the township, all the liabilities, and the net position. So working from the column from the right, total assets of the township, $23.9 million, consisting primarily of cash and investments, capital assets being depreciated, and about $1 million worth of receivables. All pretty normal and comparable to what you've had in prior years. $59,000 of a deferred charge and a bond refunding that occurred prior to our tenure as auditors. We're amortizing that deferred charge over, I think it's another 12 years or so. Under liabilities section, $5,469,000 of total liabilities. Most of that is in your water and sewer activities, and you'll see that's about $5.2 million there for that. So everything here on the balance sheet looks healthy, it looks normal, and it looks recurring. The last number, $18.5 million, that's your total net position. That's essentially assets minus liabilities, broken up into 3 categories. That invested in capital assets, so those are buildings like this, tables like that, chairs like that. That's not actual cash that you can just spend. You got $1,564,000 in restricted net assets, and the rest is unrestricted, broken up between the governmental activities and business type. And just for edification purposes, business type is water and sewer. So everything else is under governmental, water and sewer under business type. Okay? So it's a healthy balance sheet. A lot there to be proud of. Page 20 and 21 are the statements of activities. This is income statement number 1. It looks kind of weird if you're used to looking at commercial income statements. We start out with expenses on the left-hand side here. And then we push program revenues across in the next 3 columns, broken out into 3 categories. Charges for services, operating grants and contributions, capital grants and contributions, and then the net expense by function. Those numbers roll over to the top of page 21. $1,908,000 in governmental activities, $707,000 in business type, total of $1,201,000 net expense. This is before applying any general fund revenue. So now you go property taxes and special assessments, $1,510,000. You've got some grants and contributions. You've got some unrestricted investment earnings. Overall general revenues of $2,379,000. When you take that positive number and you subtract the negative number, you get to a change in net position of $1,178,000. That would be akin to a net income, if you would. So, balance sheet's looking good. Income statement's producing some revenue and some excess revenue in this case for this year. You add that to the opening net position, that ties to your ending net position of the year. Any questions on the income statement? All right. 22 and 23, this is this balance sheet number 2. This is what you're probably used to seeing is things by fund. So general fund, fire and police, ambulance, not majors. So what you've got here, I only talked to the general fund because this is going to be the biggest item in this particular presentation. $4.5 million of assets. Notice that there are no fixed assets in here and there's no long-term obligations. There's no debt in here. That's the main difference between the 2 balance sheets. $4,543,000 in total assets. That's the first double underscore under general fund. $161,000 of total liabilities, and then $4,382,000 in total fund balances. Again, another healthy balance sheet. Page 25 is a reconciliation between the 2 balance sheets. You'll see the main items in here are capital assets and debt, which in this case is compensated absences, which ends up being accumulated PTO. Pages 26 and 27 are the second income statement. This is presented again in the same format we just saw, the general fund, police and fire, ambulance, and so forth. Speaking from the general fund, total revenues, $1,319,000, principally from state grants, property taxes, special assessments, licenses, and permits. Expenditures, next half of the income statement, and these are written out in program specific. This follows the state chart of accounts. So you might be looking for like power or powers and utility, salaries and wages. This breakout here is required by the state. So this is the state required presentation of this particular set of expenses. So general government, 753, public safety, 105, public works, 13,000, cultural and recreation of 20 grand, and then capital outlay of 77. Overall total expenses of 969, revenues in excess of expenditures by 351,000, transferred in 73,133. Overall net change in fund balance of $424,000. When you add to the beginning, 3,958, you get to 4,382,000. So all of your barometers are going in the right directions. Page 29 is the reconciliation of the two income statements. Again, it's very similar to what we saw on page 26. Pages 30, 31, 32, 33 are your budget to actual performance by fund. So were I sitting in your chair, the most important thing you need to pay attention to, and this is what the state watches in this audit report, is the second half of page 30. When you see all the items here from original budget to final budget to actual to over under, on the right hand side, your expenditures must be under what you've approved as a board or as a budget. If you have excessive amounts that are over the budget, the state will send you one of the little notes that tells you to budget better, and that's what we have to endeavor upon, is to budget better. There was only one instance where we had expenses in excess of the budget. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. So 30 and 31 are the balance, or I'm sorry, that's the general fund. You go to 32, you're in the police, fire and police special revenue fund, and then you get over to 33, and that's the ambulance special revenue fund. All right, pages 34, 35, 36, and 37. These are the financial statements for the water and sewer funds. These are defined differently under governmental accounting standards. These are called proprietary funds. Anything that looks, acts, and smells like a commercial business falls under this category. So your water and sewer acts like a functional business, falls into these categories. So starting from the total column on the right-hand side on page 34, overall assets between water and sewer, $17,095,000. Not at all odd that you would have $12 million or more of capitalized assets that are being depreciated and some that are not. You also have about $4.5 million in cash and cash equivalents, $226,000 of receivables, and $599,000, almost $600 due from other funds. All normal in its presentation, and nothing on this balance sheet looks odd. Going through the second half, we've got the deferred charge on bond refunding, we've got your normal liabilities and accounts payable, accrued liability, the due to other funds, which this is an interfund between water and sewer, accrued compensated absences, bonds payable, then you've got your long-term portion of bonds payable. Very bottom, $11,256,461 of total net position. Again, that's assets minus liabilities, and that is a strong balance sheet. Now we get over to page 35. This is your income statement for these two specific funds. Total operating revenues among water and sewer, $1,725,000. And then you see your operating expenses, $877,689. Total operating income of $848,000. A little bit of interest income, $141,000 of interest expense. Overall change in net position of $711,000, or that would be akin to net income. Again, you add that to the beginning net position, you get to your $11,256,461. Pages 36 and 37 are your statements of cash flows. You might wonder, why do we have a statement of cash flows? Well, they're required under proprietary funds. Not required under the general fund. They're only required in this type of a fund. What this basically tells you, the reader, is where'd the cash from? Where'd the cash come from? Where did it go? Working again from the total column, 1,200,000 was cash received from customers and other. 45,393 cash paid or to or on behalf of employees. Cash paid to suppliers, 449,000. Then you had payment to other funds, 49,653. Under the capital and related financing activities, you had a net burn of $683,000 in cash, consisting primarily of your bond payments and interest payments. Then you had some special assessment collections and some purchase of capital assets. Interest income received of $4,000. Overall net change in cash position of $571,000. When you add it to opening cash of $3,881,000, you get to $4,452,000. Page 37 is what's called the indirect method of reconciling the first. The first section on page 36 is reconciled in a different way on page 37. So you see the totals at the bottom of page 37 tie to the first subtotals on page 36. It's just a different way to reconcile between the two statements of the cash flows of the two different methods. And once we know we've got this in sync, we're in good shape. All right, next, page 38 and 39 are going to round out your formal financial statements. Under the statement fiduciary net position, this is going to be your custodial fund. Pooled cash of $9,713, and then $9,713 is undistributed taxes and interest. So that's money you are holding on behalf of somebody else. Page 39, under the custodial fund, for a change in net position, you took in $9,092,308, and you paid out exactly what that dollar amount to other governments that were expected to receive the money you collected. So all good there. Any questions on the statements?
Steve, you said there was one.
Let me get there. So, on page 41 begins the footnotes. This goes all the way back to page, these are long, back to page 56. So, a couple of things we're going to talk about. Footnote number 1 just defines the entity, talks about the accounting principles used, is very consistent year over year. Bottom of page 43, we start talking about specific balance sheet captions. Deposits and investments, receivables over on 44, prepaid items, capital expenses. These are your accounting policies you use to account for these assets and liabilities. Page 45, deferred outflows, compensated absences. 46 includes long-term obligations, fund equity, inter-fund transactions, and at the top of page 47, the use of estimates. So here's where we're going to talk about the one item that was not budgeted for was the transfer out of Metro Act Special Revenue Fund for $73,133. So the fact that you only have one of these, I don't expect the state to get too annoyed or to send you guys a letter. We've had clients who've had pages of this, and that's when the state loses their sense of humor.
That was, and that money was for our portion of Stadium Drive.
Right, so if I came in after year end and didn't have any budget for it.
I don't know that I even thought about amending the budget for that. Cause it's came out of state Metro Pro
Right.
funds. So, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Don't lose a lot of sleep over this. Having one is not an issue. If we thought that there was a big issue, we'd be having a different discussion today. So, if I told you you were the first client that this happened on, I'd be lying to you. But the state, that's one footnote that the state will actually read of every one of these reports we submit to them. So, moving over to page 48. Now we go into the nuts and bolts of what is in this example, deposits and investments. Moving over to page 49, the composition of what's in accounts receivable. Page 50 are your capital asset roll forward, shows the beginning balance from the end of last year, what you added, what you disposed of, and any transfers, gets you to your ending balance there on the far right. The top of page 51 is the similar table, and this is going to be for your business type activities or the water and sewer funds. The last half of that page describes where depreciation expense has been charged. $20,000 in general government, 212 in public safety, 11,655 in public works. The majority of this is going to be in water and sewer. Sewer is 109,000 and water is 227. Moving through the rest of the footnotes here on page 52, footnote number 6 is your detailed analysis of accounts payable and accrued liabilities. Interfund transfers is your footnote number 7. Bottom of 52 begins your discussion of long-term debt. That comes over to the top of page 53, shows the 3 different bond issuances that are still outstanding. At the bottom shows your principal and interest due in 1-year increments for the next 5 years, and then in 5-year increments thereafter until maturity. So you'll see $5,090,000 is outstanding, and $669,000 of interest will be paid through 2039. Not likely all of us will be here for that. Moving over to the top of page 54, compensated absences, as I mentioned, those are unpaid vacations, PTO, and so forth. There's an estimate that's embedded in that calculation there. Talk about that in a minute. And then your GO bonds for the business type activities, which is water and sewer again, shows here the beginning, any additions to that, deductions. Deductions are typically principal and interest payments, and then your ending balance for those obligations. Footnote number 9 has a brief discussion about risk management. Everybody is subject to certain levels of risk, and this defines that in a very brief statement there. Footnote number 10 talks about property taxes and your policies related there too. 11 is your defined contribution pension plan. Rolling over to page 55, footnote number 12, GASB 54 came into effect about 10 years ago. Requires the footnotes to have a little bit more detailed analysis of what's reported on for fund balance. So here's where you're going to see some more nuts and bolts about what your fund balance really is. So non-spendable consists of $73,000, looking at the far right here. Advances to other funds of $397,000. So total non-spendable fund balance is $470,000. These numbers tie back to your balance sheet, by the way. And then the restricted portions of fund balance are public safety, health and welfare, right-of-way improvements, liquor inspections, milfoil control for $1,512,000, and then you have committed as a board to $1,525,000 for town hall building. The rest of it is unassigned. Top of page 56, some people do ask the question is what does net invested capital assets means? That means very simply your total capital assets less the debt that you have incurred against those. So on the far right hand side, it's easier to show the business type activities. You got $11.2 million of total capital assets that were purchased, and you've got $5,147,000 in outstanding bond obligations for those assets for a net invested of $6,090,514. The last footnote, nobody can get away from talking about COVID, and neither can the audit firm. So this is just telling everybody we still have COVID out there, and we are uncertain as to what things are going to look like going forward. Any questions on the footnotes? Okay, I generally don't comment on the combining schedules because again, these are very small dollar amounts in here, and we could be here for a week if I want to go to one of those. But on page 63, this is an important item I want to talk about. This is the independent auditor's report on internal controls over financial reporting. This is defined in our world as called a yellow book audit, which is subject to certain governmental auditing standards, which are higher than generally accepted auditing standards. We go one level higher. So this is the report for our consideration on that. If you read the first paragraph, talks a lot about which financial statements we're engaged to audit, which is the Blair Township, June 30th, 2001. It talks about internal control over financial reporting and defines the different levels of findings. If you go over to the top of page 65, top paragraph, last sentence. We did identify certain deficiencies in internal control described in the accompanying schedule of findings and responses as items 2021 1, 2, and 3 that we consider to be material weaknesses. Okay, and then if you go to the next paragraph, compliance and other matters. Last sentence, the results of our test disclosed no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. That's good news. Management's response to the findings is in the next paragraph, and the purpose of the report is defined in the last paragraph. We talked about the findings. I think everybody here was here last year, right? So these are all repeat findings from last year. 66 and 67, the pages here, are items that you're not going to be able to really get away from. 66 is the knee-jerk accounting reaction to what happened when Enron went south. It required every client that's under audit to be able to prepare this document with internal resources. That was the requirement of that after Enron happened. 95% of our clients don't have CPAs on staff that are licensed, current with their education, so they engage the audit firm to do that, to help them with that. That's totally permissible, but when we do that, this has to be reported. So that's what 66 is. We assist in the preparation of the document, and then when we give it to management, they take ownership of what we've helped them do, and then I come here and present a draft to you. So 66 is probably not going to go away until the audit standards change. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. Page 67, lack of appropriate segregation of accounting duties. This is very customary in clients who have small accounting departments. You don't want to hire 9 people to have 9 different segregations of duty. To alleviate yourself of this finding, it's our responsibility to report that there is a risk, but we also believe that there are mitigation factors in place that reduce this risk to an acceptable level. That doesn't remove our responsibility to report it, though. We still have to report it. And then the last one on 68, this is the township's policy on unpaid delinquent water and sewer. You add those to your property tax bills. And that seems to be something that's working for you. It's not normal what we see in our client base. We would recommend that you not do that, but I think you've gotten into a routine here to continue to do that. Is that correct?
That's been the standard of practice. The ultimate goal is once we're completely set up with our own DPW truck, or department.
Yep.
Truck. We need a truck too. Department, and we have the staff and the ability to go out and actually physically turn on and turn off, then we'll go to that. We now have 2 full-time DPW employees. Hopefully next year we'll have a 3rd.
Okay.
And then we'll have the means to do that, right? And prior to, we didn't. We had a contracted service and they were just too busy to do the turn-ons and turn-offs. I mean, we don't want to turn off and not have somebody available to turn back on when somebody pays their bill.
Yeah,
So that's the goal. We're aware of it. We know your recommendation.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse. We've already talked about this, and if it works for you, we will continue to. We watch that. We spend a fair amount of time in the audit in that area because there is some risk here. So we do spend some time there.
The one step further, Steve, this year than last year is we now have our 2 full-time DPW employees. We're no longer with a contracted service.
Okay.
So we're getting there.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Got it. Yep, I understand. And this is, if this was an issue that was more pervasive, we would have had a discussion earlier than today.
Yeah, and certainly if it was illegal or,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
No, there's nothing illegal about this.
Yeah.
And I understand if you cut somebody off, then there's not someone there to turn it back on.
right,
Someone's gonna be in that office,
right,
and you're not gonna be having any fun around here.
correct.
Yeah, so, yeah, so as long as you continue to make baby steps towards there,
Yeah.
we monitor this, but know that we do spend a fair amount of audit effort here because of the risks associated with that.
And then in the year of COVID, you couldn't have turned off anyways.
Correct. Yeah, that's a whole different discussion. So does anybody have any questions on this document? I've got the letter, we'll just take a couple seconds to get through, but anything on this? I know you just got it when I dropped it off tonight. You can get back to me after you've had some.
They got copies of it
Yeah, we
before.
have
Oh, okay.
We read it.
Okay, all right, so,
Thank you.
yep, so, and we're ready to go whenever you are. You just let us know when you're ready to, when the board approves this. If it's ready to go, then we'll get busy printing stuff tomorrow.
Well, I think I would make a motion to accept the audit for the year ending June 30, 2021 as presented.
Support.
Oh, wait, I gotta be writing this down.
And we will make sure we file with the state and get the state's receipt.
And you'll get me the F-65, or Lauren will, right?
As soon as we get this thing done, they'll start working on F-65s.
It's been moved and supported to approve the year-end June 30, 2021 audit as presented tonight. Any further discussion?
Damn, I'm out of practice. Okay, Campbell,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Wolfgang, yes. Fleece,
Yes.
Kuchera,
Yes.
Zeitz,
Yes.
and Blanchard.
Yes.
Do you want me to go through this, or do you want the board just to be able to read that like this? There's not much to this.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I can go through this in 3 minutes if you want, or we could just.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so what this letter is this is basically a conclusionary memorandum to the audit, okay? So when you go through it, again, undated, so I'll get dated when we issue the final report. Under our responsibility in relation to the financial statements, on August the 5th, we issued an engagement letter. We said we were gonna do A, B, C, and D, and now I'm here to tell you that we are ready to issue the report, and the board has accepted that, so we are now in that spot. Page 2, plan, scope, and timing of the audit. We lay out certain planning benchmarks internally. We did not have to change those to do the audit here, which is a big testament to your staff. In the year of COVID, stuff was moving all over the place. We could plan to be out here on August the 10th, and this COVID case comes in, and back then it was panic mode. I mean, still panic mode, but it was different. So luckily, nothing changed the plan, scope, and timing of the audit. Everybody on the team complies with the ethical requirements regarding independence. Under qualitative aspects of the township's significant accounting policies, we've gone through all of those that were in the footnote number 1 of the financial statements. There are estimates embedded in your financial statements, and those can be found at the bottom of page 2. Estimated useful lives of depreciable capital assets are estimates. Accrued compensated absences are estimates. So we just want to make sure you understand the significant estimates. And then at the top of page 3, uncollectible account allowance is an estimate. If you look in the next paragraph, we evaluated the key factors and assumptions used to develop these estimates and determined that they are reasonable in relation to the basic financial statements taken as a whole. So we are good with the estimates. Under significant difficulties, there were none. Under uncorrected or corrected statements, there were none, other than the ones that were talked about in that second finding about material audit, journal entries, and so forth. There were some of those that happened as a part of doing the audit, nothing of reportable. No disagreements with management. The management's representation letter is attached to the last 4 or 5 pages of this document. That's a letter that management will sign, basically telling the audit firm that what they gave us is true, accurate, and honest to the best of their knowledge and belief. Bottom of page 3, there were no management's consultations with other accountants that we were aware of. Top of page 4, there are no other significant matters, findings, or issues. We've already gone through them. Information and documents containing audited financial statements. We talked about the MD&A, what the auditor did and didn't do with that. We talked about the supplemental schedules, that those are covered by the audit. Under upcoming changes in the audit standards, if you go now to A1, A2, those are the upcoming changes in the auditing for accounting standards and regulations. None of these are going to have a significant impact on the township, but we are required to report them for your intrigue and willingness to read prior to falling asleep. So that's what we watch for, and I can attest that if these are going to affect the township in any way, we will work with the team to implement those. And then B1 is the representation letter, which is the letter that management will sign, send back to the audit firm right before we issue the financials. It has basically Nicole, Lynette, and Tracy to sign. It tells us that what we gave us was accurate, honest, to the best of their knowledge. So that's what that letter is all about. Any questions on the letter? Any questions at all about anything? Thank you for having me.
So you're pretty lucky, aren't
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
you?
You have a great staff that works very, very diligently with us in getting this to this point, because there is a fair amount of blood, sweat, and tears, right? To make this
Mostly
happen.
Linetti.
Yeah.
Yep, I get it, but, yeah, we all have to help each other to get here, that's all true.
I'll tell you, it's gotten easier every
I
year.
told you it would.
Compared to that first year.
Transition's a little bumpy sometimes, but yes, we enjoy working with Blair Township and hope to continue into the future, so. You guys have a happy holiday season, and I'll get out of here.
Merry
as soon as
Christmas.
the Blair Township work. Yeah.
Thanks,
Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
Steve.
Yep, bye now.
Grand Traverse County Commissioner. Hi, Ron.
Good evening, everyone. This summer, the county contracted with Management Advisory Group to do a compensation study for the employees of the county. And that study has been completed, and we have had a report on it. And after the first of the year, there will be recommendations for what we should be doing with it. And then tomorrow, we will be approving or not approving the balanced budget that administration is putting in front of us, but it's gonna be coming to the board. And there's some things on it that seem to be controversial, but it'll make for a long meeting tomorrow. Another item is Long Lake Township has requested to the Parks and Rec Authority that they would like to take over the operation and ownership of Twin Lake Parks. It's not come to our board yet, but it hasn't, the Parks and Rec Authority have not shut it down. They're having conversation, and it sounds like it could happen. So it does.
Who has that authority to make that happen? Is it up to County Parks and Rec, or is it ultimately up to the county commissioners to make that final?
If County Parks and Rec, they can make that decision themselves. If they don't, I believe it's 3 commissioners can bring it to our board, and then we would deliberate on it and vote on it.
So ultimately, it's the county commissioners'
Yeah.
decision.
And any other questions on that?
No.
Okay. And the county has sold the bonds for their pension, and just shy of $40 million. And it's just under 2% is what the interest rate is on it. And it'll be paid off before 2035. It should be actually paid off in 2033 if the payments that we're committed to right now continue. So
Did you say 40 million?
shy of 40 million, yeah. I don't have the exact number, but, and then the county will have to provide 5% of the pension bond, and that will put us at 100% funded. So it'll make things, it's not gonna be easier, but it's gonna be something that we can plan on every year, so. And that's it for my report. After following Steve here, I feel like I should have more to say. If there's no questions, I'll get on my way. Everybody have a Merry Christmas.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank
You
you.
too, Ron.
Catch you later, Ron. Thanks.
Good evening, Blair Township. I'm Blair Township Community Police Officer. I have the November 2021 report. Arrests 2, citations 5, complaints 46, traffic crashes 4, warrants obtained 1. I added this also, just so you know, like every month I do send lots of warrants over to the prosecutor's office. Most of them are always domestic assaults, which I have to send over. I'm not usually looking for somebody to be charged, and I don't expect somebody to be charged, but they have to review them by law. So there were 5 of them I sent over, which is a packet, which includes a criminal history. I have to type up a warrant request, and do some domestic paperwork with that. So 5 of those went over there and came back and they said, we're not charging anybody. So I do send over more than get charged. Just so you know. On 11/3, the owner of Wildcat Buildings, who built all the storage units over by Stadium, big ones.
Yeah.
He actually purchased one himself to run his business out of. And he hired a guy that was, he knew he was a troubled man, but he was trying to help him. And the second day he was there framing, he left him there, gave him a bunch of jobs, and when he came back, and the man was gone, all the owner's power tools were gone, like $2,000 worth.
Wow.
And he didn't fill out all his employee paperwork, so he only had his first name. That was a problem. I was able to identify him, and then about a week later, I have a computer program that runs all pawn shops, even throughout America, and I found that he pawned one of the tools in Flint. So there is a felony warrant for him right now. On 11/10, there was a rifle reported stolen off Schneider Road. The man who reported it, he recently had a stroke, so his memory was super foggy. And he told me he was hanging out with a bunch of shady people that did drugs back when the rifle became missing. So kind of a hard case to solve. So it's still missing. But we don't get a lot of missing guns, so I put it in there. On 11/16, a resident from the Crimson Ranch subdivision, she came to me. She was scammed out of $2,000. What happened was she saw a local lady in Traverse City that posted a job posting. And this lady looks really legit because they have friends in common. So she's like, oh, this is a real person. She sees pictures of the lady's kids on there. So she inquires about the job. Hey, I'd like to get the job. It turns out I tracked that lady down because the initial victim from Crimson Ranch thought, hey, this local lady is the scammer. And I was like, I don't think she is, but I'll find her. And she said about a year ago, somebody hacked her Facebook account. She has no access to it. She couldn't get on it. She couldn't log on. They changed the password. They changed her email, so she can't do anything. And the hacker is still using her Facebook account, her kids' pictures, and putting up this job posting. And then through that job posting, she talks people into her sending them checks. They cash them at their bank and send her money back. Anyways, she lost all the money, and so it's too bad. And Facebook will not take that account down because they say there's no way to prove it's fraudulent. So I always wonder when people come on Facebook, and they're like, hey, I was hacked. So that's why they do it, I guess. To scam people. That's all.
Glad you're feeling
Thank you,
better.
Matt.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, guys.
Treasurer's report.
All right, we have $4,285,348 for general fund, $624,605 for public safety fund, $688,579 for ambulance fund, $17,094 for Metro Act fund, $35,187 for liquor law enforcement fund, $12,685 for milfoil fund, $1,701,927 for sewer fund, $2,455,785 for water fund. Current tax collection is $20,535. Payroll fund is $2,005 for a total of $9,843,750.37.
Thank you, Tracy.
Stay. Our assessor is next, she'll be right back. Oh, Wendy, update on assessing form, you're up.
Well, what's in front of you is, are you talking about the public inspection of records? Yeah, and I think Nicole asked me to be here just in case you had further questions beyond, because we referenced the assessing reform, which is kind of a big deal and something we've been talking a lot about in the office. But one of the changes in the assessing reform is what's bringing this in front of you. They require that our public inspection policy specifically names someone in the assessing department by name, telephone number, and direct email, as I recall. So we talked about whether to pass a separate policy or amend this policy and decided to go this way.
Which, this is on our agenda to amend this policy. I also really wanted Wendy to stick around in case anybody had any questions on her memo, the last paragraph, the additional item of concern beginning in 2022 is support staff are going to be required to be certified.
Do you mean to have an assessor's license?
It's not an assessor's license, no. What they're doing is they're requiring that you either have an assessor's license, which Aaron did, but he gave that up, or be trained, and that's new. And the biggest problem with it really is not having somebody trained as far as like Aaron goes. Nancy doesn't put any information in or out of the database, so I'm not worried about Nancy. The biggest concern here is how this is going to affect the zoning department, because they currently use my database to issue land use permits. That's not going to be allowed anymore. They're also not going to be allowed to give out information, print record cards, answer questions on the phone, that type of thing. So it's going to be really the biggest change for this is going to be for the zoning department. It's going to mean looking at software for them separately from mine.
And we have gotten in touch with PSNA about theirs, so. So,
How, when you say be certified, that's you,
Right.
that's not,
Yeah, you can have staff that is certified. There's several certifications. One that the state came up with a few years ago is called an MCAT, or it's MCAT. It stands for a Michigan Certified Assessing Technician. So a lot of offices, if they have an assessor and staff, that staff will be an MCAT certified person.
Right.
That's not required in this case, but what they are saying is if you have staff that does anything that either affects how we assess or gives out information, any public with contact, they have to be trained. And I think the training is going to be once every 2 years, so it's not really a certification and not calling it certification, but you are going to have to be trained, and we'll have a form that's going to be required to be submitted every year for each of them.
yep, so we would require Aaron to go through that.
Aaron will have to.
Is it like a one-day class or is it?
I don't know, they haven't said that yet. They do a very nice job of telling you what's going to happen, but not how it's going to happen, so that's kind of consistent with the State Tax Commission. I don't foresee any problems at all with that, with Aaron doing that. And Board of Review, of course, is gonna have training that's gonna be required beginning this year, and that same form will have to be held with our role. The biggest concern is the zoning issues.
Repeat that just one more time for the record.
The fact that it's the zoning issues that are gonna be the biggest problem here.
Right,
Yeah.
and no longer being able to print out record cards and issue permits out of the assessing.
Yeah, and that's gonna be true for
Database
everybody.
and-
So like
right.
if somebody calls into the office, like for instance, we commonly will get questions back and forth, like people will call me and ask the tax balance, or they might call you and ask for whatever. We're gonna have to be really, really crystal clear that we don't allow any sort of conversation like that, because at this point, we don't know how they're going to audit us. Like, I don't know if they're gonna ask for a copy of my database and look at a complete audit trail for everybody who has a log on and what they've done. We don't really know, so.
Well, and they're gonna definitely, because one of the policy change or addition that we have to amend our policy is specific.
Mhm.
Yes.
Specific
Name's Wendy.
to name Wendy.
Yeah, they're gonna be real, yeah, they're definitely auditing. And I suspect our audit will be in 2023, because we were audited in 2018, and they generally are running on a 5-year cycle. So what's really important is to get everything in place as quickly as possible, so that by the time we get there, if they ask for my 2022 database, we're not behind the 8 ball, because I'll create that database probably in April, maybe even March.
So will your software have to be changed too?
No, my software's fine, but BSNA offers permitting software. We've never used it. It's a nice program. It's expensive. And we just haven't had the need for it. So that's one option, is to buy that software. And then the other is to look at the software that the county's currently using, and I don't know what that's called, but that's sort of like a countywide integrated software system that we could probably tap into. Again, there would be a fee involved, but issue permits under that software, so that at least my database isn't being touched. People aren't logging in and doing things, whatever it is. Printing is a big deal, because currently people come to the counter, they'll ask for information on a parcel, and Lisa will print a record card and give it to them. That type of thing just isn't gonna happen anymore.
Andy, you guys just recently switched to the same permitting software that Grand Traverse County is using, didn't you?
I believe we're in the process of switching to that. It looks like it's a pretty slick system from what I'm hearing, because instead of having to, that's your coffee pot now, I can't. Instead of running 3 different places or 4 different places and prints being switched around, it's all being handled through one, and I think it's a little more cost effective than the BSNA option.
So, in the back of my tax program, I'll have to print out one tomorrow and ask you.
Mhm.
I have like an assessing tab, and I print that out sometimes for people. I mean, it's in my tax program, but I just wonder, it has all the information on that parcel.
It's probably the record card.
It could be a record card, or it could be a real estate summary statement. It could be there's another one, valuation statement, I think they're called. Yeah, we're gonna wanna make really, really sure that anything you're printing out is specifically for a tax bill and nothing beyond that. Because anything beyond that is gonna be assessing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll print one out tomorrow. Show you.
Any other questions for Wendy? No? Thanks for staying.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm
What am I
explaining
gonna
all this.
Tracy, when you find out, could you send me an email and let me know if we can't do that later?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'll show her in the morning and have her look at it.
Thank you.
Announcements and correspondence. Anybody have anything?
Well, it said in, the EMS report that, Tim, and I don't know how to say his last name,
Genhart.
that he's done a lot of extra effort toward doing things around the station and that he should get a thank you, so thank you. Tell him thank you.
We should just mention, we did have our first public open house, ARPA open house. We had 4 people.
Yeah.
4 is better than none.
Yes.
I appreciated those 4
Yeah,
being
it's
here.
pretty good input.
I don't think we need to set another meeting date at this time. Yeah, I think we probably should have another meeting at some point, but let's wait till after the first of the year.
Yeah.
And I will attend that one.
We'll have another meeting just for you.
And there'll be 5 people.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Right. Consent calendar. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with in one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board may ask that any item of the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected.
I would make a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented.
It's been moved and supported to approve the consent calendar as presented. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Blondshine,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Wolfgang, yes. Kuchera,
Yes.
Fleece,
Yes.
Zeitz,
Yes.
and Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Unfinished old business. Number 1. This one I just stuck on here because we're still waiting for environmental, to get our clear environmental on the TCAPS property. So the deed has not been recorded yet. TCAPS is holding the deed until we get our environmental back. So I just wanted to get pre-approval in case tomorrow we get the environmental back. I wanna pick up that phone and call TCAPS and say, file the deed.
Yeah.
But they also are gonna want $500 from us, so I just want board approval that in the event we get a clear environmental report back, that Lynette and Tracy can cut a check immediately for $500 to go to TCAPS so we can get that deed recorded.
I would make a motion
Yes, you can.
to allow the clerk and treasurer to pay the $500 fee, attorney fee for recording the deed on the TCAPS property without prior board approval.
Support.
Wow, how did I say that?
Just read it how you say it. It's been moved and supported to approve paying for the clerk and treasurer to cut a check for $500 to TCAPS for attorney fees in order to record the TCAPS property deed. You said something like that.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Blondshine,
Yes.
Kuchera,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Wolfgang, yes. Fleece,
Yes.
and Zeitz.
Yes.
Item 2, reevaluate COVID sick time bank. We said in our resolution, when we did this, that at the end of the 2021 calendar year, we would revisit and reevaluate this if necessary. Well, in my opinion, clearly it's necessary since
I think so.
the COVID numbers are the highest they've been since the onset of COVID. So I would just make the motion that we extend resolution 2021-24, resolution regarding COVID sick time bank for another 6 months.
Support.
Can you,
Give you a date
yeah,
June 30th.
to be reevaluated June 30th of 2022. Also, with this resolution.
Yeah.
Could you add the date?
Yeah.
At the very first,
Yeah.
the very first paragraph, you guys add a special meeting, Blair Township
Board, Blair Township, Township of Blair, Grand Traverse County, Michigan, held Township Hall located Grand, Michigan on the 25th day of August. I just asked her to add the date, 2021, to that. Oh, we didn't catch that before, but I caught it. Did we vote on that?
No. Who supported it?
I did.
Are you sure?
Well, three of us said it, so
Okay,
just take one of the three.
okay. Kuchera,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Wolfgang, yes. Fleece,
Yes.
Zeitz,
Yeah.
and Blonshine.
Yes. Item 3, corrected list of parcel numbers for Meadowwoods 1 and 2 streetlight special assessment.
When we approved this, the list I gave you, all the parcel numbers started with 430, which was incorrect. Meadowwoods 1 starts with 430, Meadowwoods 2 starts with 460, so I just wanted to make that clear. I don't know that we need a motion.
I don't think so. Item 4, .gov domain.
Okay, so we got our Blair Township mi.gov. I think that's what it is, approved. So we would like to move forward with it, but if you read this, you can see that it could cost us $20 or it could cost us $400 every year.
I read it that it's free.
No.
Well, the
There's
last
no
sentence
confusing.
says .gov domains will be available at no cost for qualifying organizations beginning today.
But that was only good for today.
For qualifying. I don't know, in conversations with, the price of got, one concern was raised, the $400 per year. Digital, it's only available to January.
That's the last paragraph.
I didn't really read it, this
See
was
that?
Wixel's deal.
The last paragraph. There's perhaps never been more important time for the public to know where to get their official government information online. So, in order to remove unnecessary barriers and reduce the credibility of malicious impersonation attempts, .gov domains will be available at no cost to qualifying organizations beginning today. So my question was, what's qualifying?
Right.
I'm assuming we're qualifying.
I guess.
I would think we better find out.
I mean, it can't be much just to have your .gov and showing where your information about the township, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's like your website and that
Okay.
would be your .gov. Right now, I think we pay 143 or 167. It seems like one of those numbers a year
A year, right?
for our
Yeah.
domain.
Okay,
Is that the .org?
Mm-hmm.
that's the website.
Mm-hmm.
And our email.
Mhm.
Well, I would make a motion to go ahead with the .gov domain.
I support that.
It's been moved and supported to, quote unquote, go ahead with the .gov domain.
Move forward.
Move forward with the .gov domain. Any further discussion? Who's gonna set this up? I mean, how do we move forward with this?
Wixel will have it. She's been dealing with it. We're gonna have to get a hold of IT right. Probably is our first step.
For,
the email. And then probably
Network
revise
Network Solutions is our
the domain. Okay,
carrier right now.
so we would just have to cancel with them,
Mm-hmm. But I would think we would want to,
keep it for a while?
yeah, and point it to, that would be a good IT right question, point
Yeah.
it to the new website, so if you put in,
Right, that it would go to the .org. So, I'll have to check and see when our year is up,
August.
is it? Well,
So by the
that
time we
would
get,
be good.
right, by the time
Yeah.
we get going on this,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because business, everything is.
So, yeah, takes a while.
Okay, Campbell,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Sights,
Yes.
Wolfgang, yes, Blonshine,
Yes, it's hard to change.
I'm not opposed to change, what I'm opposed to is not having all the information in front of us. I don't know
Yeah.
for sure how much this is gonna cost.
If it's
I don't,
gonna, yeah, you're right.
So,
well,
I don't know where this came from,
Mhm.
you know,
it
so,
came from the .gov.
But shouldn't we have all the facts, like, this is exactly what it's gonna cost us?
Well, this is,
Other,
I think even at $400 a year, it's worth it.
well, I do too. But I still haven't seen any documentation that, and if this is legit, valid documentation, this tells me it's free, so I'll vote yes if it's at no cost. That's my motion, that's my vote.
Kuchera,
No,
Fleece,
Yes.
New business, number 1. This was the amendment to policy 2021-13 that we talked about.
the additions are in bold italics. I don't think there was anything struck.
No,
So they were
no,
just
that was
the
just
additions.
the, I'll make the motion to amend policy number 2021-13.
Support,
Any further discussion?
Zeitz,
Yes.
Wolfgang, yes, Campbell,
Yes.
Blonshine,
Yes.
Fleece,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
yes.
and Kuchera.
yes,
Item number 2, policy 2021-22, federal procurement conflict of interest policy.
I found out from one of the other clerks that, we had to pass this to accept our ARPA funds. And there is one spot in here that we need to come up with a dollar amount. Where it says gifts, items of nominal value valued at less than whatever dollar amount, we decide on which fall into one of the following categories may be accepted. I know, I believe
I'd say 100.
it was Peninsula that went with 100.
That's what I'd say.
I would make a motion to approve policy number 2021-22 for the federal procurement for conflict of interest policy.
Say that really fast.
Yeah.
I'll support. It's been moved and supported to adopt policy 2021-22, the federal procurement conflict of interest policy.
Do we want to just mention that we're making the nominal value $100 in that motion?
Yeah.
Thank you, Lynette.
You're welcome. Okay, Wolfgang, yes. Campbell,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Kuchera,
Yes.
Fleece,
Yes.
Zeitz,
Yes.
and Blanchett.
Yes. Item number 3, resolution 2021-27 to set water and sewer fees.
This is, at the last meeting, we approved the lower rate for the laundromat. So,
Oh, that's right.
on page well, they're not numbered, but under schedule of residential equivalents, the only thing that's changed is the laundry self-service at 0.25 per washer.
I would make a motion to approve policy number 2021-22. Wait a minute, that's the wrong one. I'll start over. I'd make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-27 to set the water and sewer fees.
Or,
It's been moved and supported to adopt resolution 2021-27, the resolution to set water and sewer fees.
Fitzpatrick?
No, I don't want to discuss
Oh,
this.
I'm sorry.
Any further discussion? Yes. We, and maybe I'm wrong. We have the laundromat who made a special request to have his benefit fees reduced. He's going in at Chum's Corners. For me personally, it was my understanding I was voting on that specific
Oh,
case.
Correct.
I was not under the impression that I was voting to make an amendment totally
I thought
to our
No, that was not.
rate, our user fees.
I agree.
And I kind of have a problem
Yeah.
with this being presented like this. And I see in the notes, it says amended 12/14/21. I personally, and maybe I was wrong, but I wasn't voting to amend our user fees, our schedule of fees. I was voting on that specific request
I think
to ask for a variance from our ordinance.
And that was the only thing that was presented and how it was presented.
Correct. That's my understanding.
You're right.
You're right.
So,
So this, and this is for
yeah,
changing the whole fees completely for everyone?
fee schedule.
just for laundries.
Just for that laundromat?
No,
Any
this
laundry.
is for just.
This
Oh,
is a
okay.
resolution to set water and sewer fees.
Which we,
Okay.
Yeah.
So what it's setting is precedent for any laundry in the
Right.
future?
Correct.
and maybe,
And I guess I understood it the same way as you until after the meeting, and I said to Lisa, you know, what do we have to do? Well, we have to adopt the resolution to set water and sewer fees.
Couldn't it state where it is being set for this laundromat only?
Like a special use
Yeah.
thing.
It wasn't a special use, it was a variance from our ordinance, and
Right.
every year our water and sewer rates go up, so we adopt the water and sewer rates. But what she's done is she has completely changed from 0.5 benefit fees to 0.25. So this would be for everybody.
I guess, on the other hand, though, I'm thinking if we're gonna do it for one laundromat, I mean, chances that we're gonna get another laundromat in Blair Township would be slim, but
Well,
why would we do it for one and not the other?
You are correct. We could, I mean, it would be a legal battle, is what it would be. Because precedent has already been set. And
It was more like a special use though, wasn't it? Rather than a precedent.
I guess what it should have been, the request should have been a request for a variance from the ordinance.
yes,
It was.
that's how it should have been stated.
It was.
Exactly what it
That's what
was.
it was.
It was, that's what we voted on.
But the prices aren't in the ordinance. The ordinance says the prices will be set by resolution.
See, it says,
So the way it's,
Well, there wasn't.
to approve the reduction of water sewer benefit fee to 25 cents per washing machine is requested for a new proposed Blair Plaza laundromat.
Right. But it came as a special.
Yeah, I took it, like what you just said, I took it as building specific.
Trying to think of how. She has on here amended 12/14/21. We didn't amend this ordinance on 12/14/21. We approved a request for a variance.
It is 12/14.
Well, it's saying when we approve it tonight,
Right.
that's the amendment.
yeah,
Was there a price on it previous?
Yeah,
It was
0.5.
0.5, now it's
Yeah.
0.25.
And I'm good with it. I mean, if we were to have another laundry. Or GH stuff.
And I can't imagine setting another laundromat, but there is a possibility.
Can you change that to laundry washers or whatever the term is that meet current energy efficient codes? Or standards,
Bless you.
Bless you.
and 50 cents for those that don't?
Thank you.
That's good thought.
I don't know, my brain is so dead.
Or could you adapt that now and come back with that language later?
Well, I know every year we have to,
I don't know that we don't think we adopt a resolution to set water and sewer fees every year. I think it states in, yeah, 'cause ready to use is not 1825 anymore. It goes,
Goes up every year.
right.
Yeah.
But I think that I wanna say is stated in the ordinance
It is.
that it would
It
go
goes
up
up
every
every
year,
year.
which is kinda silly.
It goes up every year, January 1st.
Yeah, it's right in the ordinance. So again, I'm not opposed to the 0.25 per washer. I just, to make sure that what I voted on last month, granting that variance
True.
from the user fee for that.
How long is it taking to get a laundromat in Blair Township?
It's been a long time.
About 25 years.
Yeah, that's gonna be hard to, you know.
'Cause they
Okay,
also-
any further discussion? Roll call?
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Fleischstein,
Yes.
Zeitz,
Yes.
Wolfgang, yes, Fleece,
Yes.
Kuchera,
Yes,
and Campbell.
Yes.
all right.
Item 4, budget amendment.
We are currently over budget in the Parks and Rec.
Mhm.
But we haven't amended the revenues part for the grants that Nicole got.
Correct.
So we've received 27,561 in donations. So that will make up for some of the difference, but we're only 6 months into the budget year. So we need to increase the budgeted amount by the amount of grants we received. And then we need to increase the budgeted amount. We don't need to, I'm recommending that, we move 7,500 from contingency to capital outlay. And we also need to increase the budgeted amount of capital outlay by the amount of the grants we got. Does that make sense at all?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Write that down.
I second it.
Did you write it down?
No. Well, it's right here.
Any further discussion?
We don't have a motion or.
Oh, we thought that was your motion.
No, I was just explaining.
Mhm.
I guess I don't feel like I should make the motion on a budget amendment because I'm the one making the budget amendment.
Oh.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So there's gonna be 3 of them?
Well, it can be one motion.
Okay, I make a motion to increase budget amount for 101-000-674-period 002 donations for the fitness court to 27,000
By 27.
by 27,561. And increase the budget amount for all those numbers. Capital outlay by 27,561. And to move 7,500 from contingency, all those numbers, to those numbers that you already have. Capital outlay.
Support. Very good, man.
Any further discussion? I just wrote Tracy a note, she's gonna check, 'cause we potentially could have another $20,000 donation coming in for the fitness court, so we'll check on that tomorrow. Roll call?
Blondstein,
Yes.
Zeitz,
Yes.
Wolfgang, yes, Fleece,
Yes.
Kuchera,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
and Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Road name approval, item 5, Stafford Ranch Lane. I make the motion to approve the road name Stafford Ranch Lane as presented.
Support.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 6, road name approval.
I make a motion to approve road name approval of Maple Hill Road.
Any further discussion?
Oh,
wait.
Support.
Support. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 7. I'd like to go into closed session. We've got the book, we've only done this one other time, I think. That was for land.
Yeah.
Closed session may be called during an open meeting, but only if all the criteria of one of the following permissible purposes are met. And we do. And this isn't a disciplinary anything, it is an employee issue, it's just an employee update, it's not a discipline issue. So I'm gonna close the regular meeting, we're gonna go into a closed session. Eric's going to join us.
We need a motion to go into close, I'll make a motion to go into closed session at
7:28.
7:28.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
One second, please.
Was that was, I say, 7:28.
7:28.
I would make a motion to come out of closed session at 7:48.
49.
Either way, support.
Support.
Oh, you get to sign, you have to sign these yet.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 8. Wexford update.
So last month I put in my report that Buckley EMS is going to close its doors. The fire department in Buckley will continue, but the EMS portion is done effective January 1.
January 1.
Yes. I've been with a couple supervisors meeting. First one was discussing what they're gonna do, what's going to happen. And this is 4 townships in Wexford, they're township supervisors. And during that, I informed them that people are gonna die. And Blair Township is not going to send paramedics down on an intercept and sit on the scene with a critical patient waiting for your ambulance to show up. We're not gonna do that. Nor are we going to short our township and our primary response area and our residents of an ambulance for your deficiencies. I contacted Dr. Smith, he didn't know about the disclosure. He and I went to the township board meetings, and he told them the same thing, people are in trouble. They got one ambulance with an increased service area, drastically increased call volume, and they need to do something. We've had a couple other meetings with the township supervisors with the recommendation that they form an authority and manage their own ambulance service. And everything was going well. And then last Thursday, one of the supervisors threw out a drag rope, slowing the whole process down. So, comes the determination of what happens now on an intercept is if somebody in Music calls 911, it goes to Oxford Central Dispatch, they dispatch Music Rescue Squad. As soon as they're done dispatching, they contact Grand Traverse Dispatch. They dispatch us for chest pain and music. Our medic cops in the trucks and go. So after Thursday's meeting, I contacted Dr. Smith to find out the legalities of and options. So we are not legally obligated to go outside of our primary jurisdiction unless we have a contract. We have an intercept billing agreement, so we have a contract. We have mutual aid with Green Lake, so we're gonna go. So we can cancel our billing agreement, cancel that going to Music, cancel the thing for our medics to get on the scene. Here's the tricky part, is if Music gets on scene in the village of Music with a chest pain, they call a radio report to Munson. Munson, who is our med control, says you need ALS on board. But Music goes through the central dispatch requesting an ALS intercept. They're going to be coming in Blair's primary response area. We are now legally obligated to take that intercept call. So either way.
Because they're in our response area.
Correct. So our primary response area is now the county line, just north of Buckley. So either way, most of the time we're gonna be taking that intercept call. Our medics won't be sitting on scene. They can't dispatch us into Western County with sending shorting our area. So, not thinking about it Friday, I wrote up a letter with Music terminating the billing agreement. It's a 90-day out, so that'll be effective March 11th. So our medics will no longer be going into Wexford County unless something drastically changes. So in that billing agreement, we get paid back from Music, and so without that billing agreement, the plan is if we go intercept with them with no billing agreement, we will be sending their residents or that patient a bill for $400 directly to the patient with a note that says you pay EMS millage. If you feel this is not adequate, please take this bill to the township hall. Because they're dragging their feet, they're not taking care of the situation. Music has an ambulance crew. I've been describing it as they have a starting pitcher for that primary call, that primary ambulance, but they got nobody in the bullpen for that secondary call as they're drastically increasing their call line. So they're setting themselves up for their people not to have a call ambulance.
So the intercept agreement will be done in March.
Correct. March 10th is the last day.
So we're responsible
Until then.
And what you're saying is, there's how many townships? 4?
4.
And there's one supervisor who's dragging his feet? Or,
Yes, this is, setting up an authority is gonna take a few months because you're gonna have 4 township boards that all have to agree on the terminology.
good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So,
Wow.
the Springville Township Supervisor said, well, we have our ambulance service right here. Sorry for the people in Buckley and Northern Western Township, but we have ours. Well, they kinda do, but that ambulance call line is now drastically increased coming up to the county line with no backups out and stuff. So the next scheduled meeting isn't until the middle of January, with nothing happening in between.
Need to get some, make the public aware of what's happening and have some public input at their meetings. And not wait until somebody dies.
That's a scary part. I mean, this is
That is
just,
scary.
and this is not just happening in these 4 townships, it's all of Wexford County.
Yep.
You got Manton,
That's a lot.
you've had, Misaki Amos coming in repetitively, picking up the ambulance calls. Cascades and Fight Lake now, they're going down on a regular basis.
Maybe Green Lake will enter into a contractual agreement with them.
I doubt it.
We're keeping our hands clean.
So just wanted to update you on that. I'm helping because I have nobody else. We're kind of involved one way or the other. I'm not spending tons of time in my office and collected some authority documentation and said, here you go, here's some footprints for you. I did a quick budget for them based off Paradise, because it'd be a similar type service.
Well, you've been presenting at all of their board meetings in Wexford County for months.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been working on this possibility of it coming to this for months.
Since September.
Wow.
So the hard part is if we could just put a curtain across that county line. But the hard part is regardless, by law, we have to respond to that intercept as they come north.
And morally, we
Mhm.
need to for
You
the
know,
betterment of a patient.
I've been talking to Mike Guernsey regularly. He's the fire chief in Buckley about him closing the doors. And it's killing him.
Sure.
So, you think about it, this consumed my thoughts all weekend, is making this decision to not send a paramedic into Wexford County. We have several employees. I have a son that lives in music, know a lot of people that live in music. And knowing that to make the decision of, we're not gonna go across that county line. My son could be in an auto accident, and he's gonna sit in our car because there's nobody coming to get him.
Yeah, I'm the same token. I could be down there in something happen. I'd love to see it. You know?
Yeah, and they used to, they have been.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I hear ya.
What Nicole said is absolutely imperative, is let the people in the town, they have to know what's happening.
Well,
Because
that's
they're
what-
blindsided.
Yeah, that's why I'm hoping submitting the bills directly to the patients with a note to make them go to their township officials and have them pay the bill. Because the townships are obligated of how the village wordings are.
All those employees that work there who cause some trouble.
Part of the trouble is the main leader, not a township supervisor of the ambulance service, of the rescue.
Music ambulance is essentially a private service, they're a 501(c), so they're not governed by.
Yeah.
And he has many years, I give him a lot of credit for servicing his community and dedication, but he has no ability to run a business.
Wow.
That's very kind, way to put it.
Anybody got any questions?
I appreciate all your time and
Yes, thank
effort
you.
and energy going into this and trying to make the right decision, keeping our township residents at heart first, as well as our employees. I mean, we're short-staffed and,
Yeah.
but I also know how heartbreaking it is when you're talking about emergency services to a person regardless where they're at.
Right.
If somebody needs help, I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
I have a sister that lives in Buckley with a heart condition,
yeah.
and I just convinced her, she lives across the street from the department, and I just convinced her, call them.
Tell her to call Uber and get to the town line.
Yeah. Well, the last time I took her to the hospital, I gotta go from here to there.
Oh, geez.
It's scary. It's scary. Any other public input?
Yes.
Dennis, we got some cards for you to sign.
I think it's important for you guys as a board to know, when I was on the road commission, I attended a lot of meetings at different townships. And Eric was at a lot of different township meetings fighting for the public safety for those areas and for your residents. I haven't seen the meetings he's attended here, but I can only imagine he's continued to represent Blair Township and Blair EMS in a very positive way. And he's concerned about the residents and anyone visiting those areas, which includes your residents and employees. And as you know, when you put on that page or put on that uniform, you don't care if you get paid or not for the township, you care about taking care of that patient. And for these people who are working at those departments, people working at this department, to know they may not be able to go help that person in need is a very tough decision, and it didn't come by lightly, so I'm sure Eric is gonna lose more sleep about this. But he's trying to take care of you guys, your employees, and your residents, and it's not easy, so I hope that you guys continue to support them as you have for as long as I've been attending these meetings. And Eric, board, please pass Eric my thanks for his continued efforts, because it's also helped our residents over in Green Lake.
And I know he's lost sleep over this.
It's
It's
encouraged me to
been
go into
months.
the field, him and some of the other guys on the force have showed me that I need to answer that call again.
And it's heartbreaking for the Guernseys. I mean, besides scary for the residents of Wexford County, but heartbreaking for those dedicated men and women who have Guernseys committed their life
Yeah.
to that ambulance service and that community. And it's heartbreaking.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Yep, thank you.
Any other public input?
I'm good, thanks.
We're adjourned, 8:04.